The topic of my today's presentation is mainly to show that we can make it, and we will make it. All right, many of you know me already. I won't waste many words to introduce myself, so I'll share the slides with you, and I'll use up all my time to share tips if I can. Of course, I would like to say, since from the beginning, that I'm not a heroine, and there are many teachers in Italy. They are doing really a lot to help our students from home, from distance. This is my school in Udine. I'm based in north to Venice. Our area was not locked up since the very beginning. I see that in the chat there is a friend of mine, Elena Balestrazzi. She was actually in one of the areas that was affected since the very beginning. We have classes from primary until up to high school. My students are teenagers aged 16 until 19 years of age. So here I'm presenting a few scenes from everyday life. Students learning in class in a traditional way. It's a boarding school, so they used to go into the canteen lunchtime, and students playing gym, playing sports in the gym, and studying, doing their homework in the afternoon. This is a normal day at school. What happened one day? I was going back home, and the day after I was supposed to go back to school as every Monday morning, but suddenly we heard on the radio that the following day, there was going to be no school, because of a virus that has affected our country. That is that the breakout of this virus is creating big problems in Italy. So try to imagine that all of a sudden you had no chance, and you have to change the whole approach. So instead of interacting face-to-face with your students in your classroom, you have all of a sudden to change your teaching style and go online, start a virtual. So imagine that this is the situation, this is the scenario, and the next day there's no school. What would you do? This is a question I ask myself. What would I do? Shall I just leave it like that and do not react at all? I knew from the very beginning that technology was going to be the only way. And I had also before some previous experiences with some students of mine that were in hospital because of very serious illnesses, and I had used video conferencing before. So starting from the very day, I went online with my students. We passed messages via Edmodo, which is our learning platform. And here you can see some of them, okay, in video conference since the very day. They reacted very happily, okay, because they need to see that life goes on. They are still teenagers. What we are doing, we are educators. So before teaching English, I try to keep my students together, to comfort them, okay, and to see them every day, make them understand that we are there, that we care for them, okay. The ministry has also made this hashtag, La scuola non si ferma. So it is true that school is closed, but learning goes on. And here it comes. But how can we set up distant learning? This is the challenge, and it's not easy to do. I realize myself that I have made pretty many mistakes so far. So this presentation, I'm going to share the slides with you if you are interested. Because when Bart asked me to give this talk, I was not aware, of course, that so many other countries in Europe were about to close their schools. So you will excuse me if some of the information is not relevant, but anyway. So I started by asking myself, is remote learning really as e-learning? We've done online learning a lot, and blended learning, that is using Edmodo and other resources online, but all the time, also flipped classroom, you go back to class and you give the students some tasks to do, and you check and you scaffold and you help them day by day. But if you don't see them, how can you do that? So the question is, where does learning happen? When does it happen? Where does it happen? And how does it happen? So I needed to make it clear to myself, first of all, synchronous and asynchronous, right? So in synchronous, students learn at the same time. It can be online, okay, also through web conferencing. It is very motivating because there is more interaction, and they can get clarification or explanations and feedback directly by the teacher. But it can be sometimes also confusing, right? Because they cannot interact all of the time. They have to mute, unmute their mics, okay? Sharing the screen is not that easy. So some parts of the learning must be also asynchronous. When students study at different times, communication is deferred, and it has also advantages because it offers more flexibility and personalized learning, so they can learn at their own pace. So we need to use to mix these instruments and blend them, okay, so through video conferencing, live chat, okay. It is important to communicate with the students with many ways, okay, not only traditional ways, but also using a lot of WhatsApp, for example, or Edmodo chat or other learning management systems, video streaming, and but also to deliver extra content, okay, like videos, for example, and or use the blogs. Or in Italy, we have the electronic register on which many teachers share also materials and resources with their classes. Okay, I would like to suggest this resource that I came across on the internet. It was published by EduBlog. These days, many companies in the digital and are offering us also upgrades, are trying to help teachers that are schools that are affected by closure. So you can, I would really suggest to go on there and check, because they give great advice. What is needed to activate distance learning? We need, first of all, a good learning platform, a learning management system. Here there are a few examples. I use Edmodo, but in my school they have just initiated also G Suite, and Google Teams by Microsoft is also excellent. Schoology of Moodle. Okay, what we also need, which is a prerequisite, is that students can have a connectivity and must have their devices, of course. And for the teachers, they must have previous digital competencies. Okay, and also other channels for communication, because while you are online, there can be there can be troubles, and you need also someone to assist you for troubleshooting. What is needed to activate learning from remote? We also need a video conference tool. Here there are a few that I have experimented. I've started with Cisco WebEx, okay, which is a guarantee. But now I'm working on Zoom, because it allows me also to reproduce the sound, so system sound. This is very important for me as a language teacher, because if I do a listening, or if I share a video, they can also listen. Okay, Jitsi is an open source platform, which is also very good, but now these days it's very overloaded. Many people are working on it. And then Google Meet, Forma, Hangout, that is working also very good, and Blue Button is another. All right. I'm working on Zoom, and here is an example of how I communicate with the class, with my students. Okay, I invite them to the session, to the live session, given the time. And it is important that these tools are all flexible, interactive, user-friendly, easy to share, and they must be engaging. Okay, because to keep the students online for it's a challenge. Okay, so if it is a challenge and they get so bored in class, where they can anyway talk also with their classmates, imagine what it means to keep them online in front of a screen for 3 or 4 hours. That's not feasible. So effective distance learning begins with structured activities to keep students focused on their learning goals and their performance objectives. And so it is important to plan the activities, create a variety of assignments, include activity instructions and relevant resources, monitor the student learning process, provide personalized feedback. I found out that they need more than usual to have feedback from their teachers. Sometimes when you are in class, it's enough to smile, you know, to cheer up, to say something, a small comment. But when they are in front of a screen, they feel isolated, so they need to have other types of feedback, and engage students in online interactive activities. It is essential to me as a teacher to have a clear methodological and organizational scenario. It is not enough to go online and simply talk as if you were in the classroom. So we need to plan, but most of us are used to that. We need to understand which type of learning methodology to activate. So are we going to assign videos to be seen for homework? Are we going to discuss then in online, web quests, or challenge-based learning, or problem or project-based learning? Okay, and then also we have to understand, well, to decide whether we want the students to interact, to be active while we are online, which is nice, but not that easily from a technical point of view, not that easy. At what point do we want them to be involved? Before the session or at the end of the conference call? Of course, the greetings are important at the beginning to make them feel welcome, okay, that the life goes on, that I am still their teacher, although they see me on the screen. And then how many post-connection deliveries and deadlines? What are they going to do afterwards, okay? Timing is essential, especially for me at the beginning. I had this feeling that I was wasting time somehow, okay? So long academic style video conferences are to be avoided. It is not possible. They cannot simply be there and online for so many days, for so many hours. And for the time being, we don't know when we're going back to school. So our schools are closed, will be closed until the 3rd of April, but some rumors already say that probably it will be extended. So it's better to prefer shorter online sessions and micro lessons to explain the learning scenario. Then assign some exercises. What I do, I usually copy and paste the link in the chat, like we do usually on webinars here. So they open a new page, they do exercise, and I share the screen with one of them. Assign tasks and deadlines that must be done, and keep an eye on learning management systems. I used to check that from time to time, but now these days I check it at least 10 times a day, because they are always sending me messages. I need help on that or on that, so they need to have this contact. And encourage comments, impressions, and feedback after each teaching moment through polls, exit tickets, and moments of reflection. So it's completely different from being in class. So I've always loved using, I'm passionate about technology, but blended learning, believe me, is pretty different from remote learning. These are some of the activities that we have been doing these days. I have already recorded more than 15 sessions online in 2 weeks closure. These are my students. We have been working on our book. We have a cloud-based book. So the exercise, I started with their book because they are familiar with it, and it makes them feel more confident, you know. The scenario is completely different and threatening to some extent. So also a lot of brainstorming. I think it is important to give them polls and exit tickets, because when you are talking, like me, for example, it's really difficult to take a look at the chat, understand if somebody has is not following or whatever. So we've done like here, for example, with Jamboard by Google. Okay, the sticky notes work very well, or word clouds with Answer Garden, pretty nice. And Tricider, which I've used already twice for the kids, asking them also simply to comment on aphorisms about solitude, isolation, okay, and they're doing great. Also, we've used Padlet a lot. Many, European School Net Academy and Teacher Academy, for all the MOOCs, I've moderated pretty many MOOCs for them, use Padlet. But most of us stick on posting or sharing resources, videos, and whatever. But if you click on these 3 dots here, you can, or maybe you are already aware, I don't know, there are extra options, extra functions that I had not used so much in the past, because I had direct one-to-one contact with the kids. And here, for example, they can record their own voice, make a podcast with their own smartphones and upload it on Edmodo, or they can make a short video, all right. And on the Pro version, there is also the possibility to record the screen. So that means that you can make a video, for example, explaining to the teacher, to the students what they have to do, commenting on their work, also through video commenting or voice comment, vocal comments. That is great. Here, for example, I've given them a creative task, so they should not be left there just to do homework. That is not a good idea, I think. Okay, so on Padlet, for example, here they have described the picture that you can see in the background in personal ways, answering questions, and I edit and correct their tests like that, giving feedback in the comments. And here, as you can see, they have recorded podcasts. I cannot show you, of course, but believe me, that is only the beginning of the task. They have not finished. They did it yesterday, and I pasted that yesterday night. Also interactive video lessons. So instead of having simply video from YouTube, all right, we can use these type of resources. ISL Collective, for example, is really well done. And as you can see down in the bottom here, there are exercises and activities that they can do. And it's not simply multiple choice, but there is also word order and tapping, many other options, many other types of exercises, really motivating. And Edpuzzle is one of the best platforms that I know of for interactive videos with multiple choice. So in order to enhance active learning. This is me with my students on Blend Space, which is an excellent tool to aggregate, to put together various resources for flipped classroom. And we've used it many times even before, so they are familiar with that. Well, now we use it also on web conferences. It makes my work easier, because while I am online, I don't have to look for the resources, open my browser and find, what you need, but it's all there. So it's a good idea to use it. More games. While we are away from school, up to now, we don't know how we have to, assess our students. There's no circular from the ministry, clear indications yet. So I'm going for formative assessment and a lot of online games like Kahoot, that everybody knows the quizzes, but also from Road to Grammar. So I try to teach grammar and vocabulary using this kind, and I pass the floor to the kids so that they can guess. Yes, it was Wednesday afternoon that we did it, and it was great. On the one hand, it looks like it is a dramatic situation, but on the other hand, it looks also as a great time for opportunities. Many teachers are trying, also those who were very skeptical about technology, now they have to do it. And it could be a good opportunity, also to support colleagues, to learn something more, because as we have always been in favor of learning by doing, right, and problem solving. So here there is a big problem, and the teachers, I think, are really motivated about it. So we have more time now, and it must be quality time. So I think that reading a book with our students is another great idea. I've used this website, ESL Bits, that gives you 2 speeds for listening. And we do that in class with my students. We read parts of this, and then the rest they do for homework. And then we discuss, as I showed you already, using many platforms for polls, exit tickets, etc. What have I learned in these 2 weeks? Again, I'm not the best one, for sure. There are other teachers and organizations. Elena belongs, for example, to one of the most efficient services districts in Italy, and she can tell you a lot more than me. But Bart asked me to share my experience, so this is what I would suggest. If I could just rewind the clock and start over again, and know from the very beginning that something like that was going to happen, okay? So this is what I would suggest. We need a workflow. it is essential to have a well-structured workflow. So what are we going to do? First of all, a response plan for all emergencies, because this time it is the COVID, it is the corona, but it could be anything else. I remember when I was 14 years of age, we had an earthquake in my region. Many people died, over 1,000 people died. School closed and there was no learning. It was stopped. But now, thanks to technology, it goes on. And so it could happen again. Of course, touch wood, it won't. But we need guidelines, scheduled class web meetings, okay, set up by the school, district administrator, or those in charge of these emergency plans. And as an individual teacher, each teacher should have a web meeting lesson plan, I think. So plan what a teaching material to use, learning activities, and also some formative assessment, because there is no teaching, there is no learning if you cannot check what your students have learned. And also while you are while you are live, so on the web call, share prepared resources with students, but also set deadlines, make announcements on the learning management system. And so tomorrow we are going live, you have to remind them about them, enable discussions. So go on, keep on talking and teaching and learning also after the web call, and mark and correct and provide feedback. And flexible communication, as I said, review student work, record feedback. That makes it easier for us also. Okay, if we record the feedback, it's easier for us because we don't have to write it. But it is easier also for the students because they just listen to it. And it is more similar to what we usually do in class. And send back students' work and encourage them to respond to your feedback. Okay, so this is what my 50 cents, all right? And so technology, more than ever, is just an instrument, okay? But what matters is that we create this virtuous circle, okay, of people that are connected,